What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to another episode of the Smark Out Moment Smack Talk podcast. It's another Pay-Per-Viewpoint, and this time around, it is WWE Backlash 2018. As if you haven't heard enough Pay-Per-View points recently, we've been going through lots of results and post-show type content with WrestleMania, and TakeOver, and the Superstar Shakeup, and the Greatest Royal Rumble, and now it's Backlash. And then eventually we're going to get a little bit of a chance to breathe without the pay-per-view stuff, but one more to go. That's going to happen this week. The Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey is hosting it. May 6th is when it's happening, and we're going to break down the card, top to bottom, everything else that we got to say, who's going to win, who's going to lose, what are we missing out on, what are we happy about, whatever the case may be. We, for this edition, exist of myself as always, your host, Tony Mango. And joining me, usual suspects here, we've got Callum Wiggins.
Yo.
And Robert DeFelice.
Yo, yo.
Yo, yo, yo.
Pop up 40 and check your rollies.
I was waiting for somebody to do it. Saw a picture of him earlier. He's like working with some Lucha Libre thing now.
Ooh, JTG?
Yeah, he's like doing commentary or something like
that. That doesn't surprise me.
So many different organizations out there. Which, real quick, want to just throw a little shout out. OTW is essentially closing shop. And for those who were interested in the sense of like training at OTW, that is no longer going to be a thing. But OTW is still going to run some shows. So if you have followed the OTW section of the whole, like me promoting that kind of thing and stuff like that, stay tuned. We'll have some more information about that as time goes on. But shout out to Jim Molyneux, former ECW referee, the head of OTW, on his semi-retirement. Congrats, Jim.
When I think of Jim Molyneux, I think of Bam Bam and Taz just viciously throwing him through a table.
I'll have to ask him about that. Just be like, Jim, do you remember that? I'll probably be like, no. Well, let's talk Backlash here. We know 8 matches on the card right now, and the first thing we want to talk about is we usually go for the pre-show first. Yet they haven't announced anything for the kickoff. And this is indicative of just exactly how WWE books a lot of things, where they have been so busy dealing with so many different things that they've lost track of a lot of things. We've seen the Backlash card change a couple different times. We saw Randy Orton and Jinder Mahal, then we didn't see that match, then it was added a different match and different things like that. We clearly are having a spillover of these events where Backlash was supposed to be a big deal, yet the Superstar Shakeup and the Greatest Royal Rumble have really negatively affected this. And one of the downsides to that is they didn't have enough time to really manipulate the card in a way that would make a lot of sense. Nor do they have a lot of time to really plan things out 100%. You can see that there are a lot of people missing off this card, and there's a lot of people that maybe should have been in a better spot or something. So we've got missing here, the Raw Tag Team Championship is not represented. The SmackDown Tag Team Championship is not represented. The Cruiserweight Championship is not represented, even though we've got 2 potential #1 contenders in Drew Gulak and in Buddy Murphy. And that they specifically ahead of time announced that 205 Live's episode this week was going to revolve around establishing a new #1 contender. That didn't happen. Also, Drake Maverick made a point to be like, we're getting back an old superstar. And I'm assuming that was just Buddy Murphy, which is like, that's lame as all hell.
Indeed Buddy Murphy.
That's like a TNA level bullshit type thing, Everybody's kind of assuming it's like Sean Daivari or it's, like Neville or something like that. And it's like, it's just Buddy Murphy. We knew that he was going to come back this week anyway. Like, that was kind of the purpose of this whole thing. So, very lame. But if we're talking just the championship matches that aren't represented here, we'll go into some other options too. If you guys had to pick, you only have room for 1 to be on the card. Raw Tag Title, SmackDown Tag Title, or Cruiserweight. Which one do you go with?
Cruiserweight. I think it's just easier to get onto the pre-show and then, get it over with.
That sounds so enthusiastic about the Cruiserweights at this point in time.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I'd go SmackDown Tag just because even if you whether it's the Usos or the New Day, it's probably going to be the better match out of the three that are available.
Well, there's no one to even challenge for the Raw Tag title, right?
Well, that's what's weird about this situation is the Raw Tag title, they went to the Leaders of Worlds, and the Bar is not really eligible to fight them again because what would be the point? They're on a different brand. It's just, it's going to just be Wyatt and Hardy that would win anyway. And we haven't established the new number one contenders. So that, to me, all right, I'll give them a little bit of leeway. You're in a weird spot. The Raw Tag titles are not the most important thing in the world, and who would fight them? Makes sense. I'll push that off the side for now. They do have to figure out what they want to do going forward, but all right. They wrestled at Greatest Royal Rumble.
At Backlash?
Did what?
Is almost debuting at Backlash?
No. Definitely
throw
not.
that on there.
The SmackDown tag titles, the Bludgeon Brothers just beat the Usos in their rematch. And I'm a little bit of the mindset that if they were to have another match, it would kind of be another one of those things where it's like, well, what's the point? Like, the Usos are going to lose. The New Day and the Bar are clearly feuding with each other now, so it'd be weird to just throw the New Day in there. And we don't really have any other tag teams that are ready to go for that. Like the Good Brothers versus the Bludgeon Brothers, it just comes out of nowhere. We could do that in the future. Cruiserweight title, though, we've got two options. It could just go to Gulak, it could just go to Buddy Murphy. And I'm really curious why they haven't announced this yet. Now keep in mind, this is Wednesday afternoon. We still got all the rest of Wednesday. We've got Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and even Sunday, because sometimes they just go like, all right, it's an hour before the pre-show, and we're going to announce a match and stuff. So they are going to announce a match. It's a guarantee. They have to. And it's just a matter of, do they go with one of these titles, or do they go with something else? Because there's actually plenty of people that aren't on this card yet.
That's obviously the biggest issue of now having all pay-per-views as co-branded events. You're now going to get a lot of people that previously would get on pay-per-view cards, whether it was on the pre-show or the main show, that now just won't appear at all because there's not enough space and you can't make every show like 4 to 6 hours long.
Yeah, the main big cards, Royal Rumble. Royal Rumble is always going to have almost everybody in it. They don't actually have everybody in it anymore because now we've gotten past the point where we have over 30 superstars that we can use. And, we've got like Sin Cara and stuff who they're not going to make the cut sometimes. WrestleMania, everybody gets on the card. That's just, we got 2 battle royals. Everybody gets on the card. SummerSlam is a little bit more nuanced where maybe not everybody gets on there, but they've got a bunch of hours. And Survivor Series, there's a little bit more of a chance that people get on there because we've got the big Survivor Series teams. And kind of expecting that we get Raw versus SmackDown again, and they kind of keep that going. But these co-branded pay-per-views going forward are going to be a little bit different, where, like you said, some people would have been on every card on like every Raw pay-per-view, and they're not going to get on almost any this year. And that's really a shame for some of those people, but maybe it's not the worst thing in the world either. It's a weird situation where I can see both perspectives here. Do you guys feel like more that this is a good thing in the sense that only the most important people will be on it, so that means that the pay-per-views are going to be better? Or are you looking at it more as, oh, we're only going to get the people that WWE values as the most important and never anybody else?
I think when I first heard about it, I thought back to during the original split when they unified them and how it made the pay-per-views more impactful and every pay-per-view felt like a big deal with better matches. But I do think there's a lot of talent that's really going to get shafted, which kind of nullifies the point of the brand split to begin with, So I don't know where I feel.
It's an issue in the sense that I'm happy that it means there's going to be less pay-per-views. I'm just getting a bit worn out with the idea of like 2 pay-per-views were happening every single month. Whether you liked everyone that was appearing on it or not, and whether you thought the match was good, up to a good standard or not, or they just became like glorified episodes of Raw and SmackDown. It does mean that it probably means that the best stuff is being saved for pay-per-views, or the stuff that they're at least putting the most focus on are being saved for pay-per-views. But it does mean that a lot of people, there'll be a lot more I guess it's positive. There's a lot more reason to watch feuds end on Raw, essentially, and feuds between, like, I don't know if you're going to put the Titus O'Neil and Baron Corbin stuff on Raw, or the Sasha Banks and Bayley stuff on Raw instead of putting it onto a pay-per-view. That means you're more inclined to watch those shows so you can see those feuds progress and actually start and end, because they won't end at a pay-per-view necessarily. But it also means that a lot of people that previously could get pay-per-view shows and like get involved in these bigger events and challenge for bigger titles and stuff like that just won't get on there because they're not a priority.
It's kind of a weird situation where you look at a lot of the people that should have been getting a push out of this superstar shakeup, and they probably would have if it was Raw and SmackDown split, and that we're not going to get it. Like, Bobby Roode and Elias are clearly feuding now. In one match, they do an injury angle, they're feuding. Well, that might not happen at Backlash. And by the time Money in the Bank comes around, they're both two people that could very easily be in the Money in the Bank match. But you can't throw 50 people in the Money in the Bank either. So, do they get that spot? Or do they not? And is this just going to be a feud that just happens on Raw? And it kind of makes it seem like, well, Rude and Elias, they're just not all that important. Let's not give them anything on the pay-per-view. Or, you know, like, that's a little bit difficult. Or like a Baron Corbin. You mentioned Baron Corbin is kind of feuding with No Way Jose and kind of feuding with Titus O'Neil. On a regular Raw pay-per-view specific thing, we'd get Baron Corbin versus either one of those. And now we're not going to. Unless they decide to throw that on the pre-show. And if they throw that on the pre-show, then it also gets a whole question of who says Baron Corbin's win is more important than Bobby Roode or Elias? Or something with Finn Balor, because he hasn't had anything to do yet. Or, you know, we have no Jinder Mahal. We have no third women's match. So we could have had Sasha Banks versus Bayley, even though I'm really sick and tired of that. I really am kind of happy that that's not the case.
How have they not wrapped that up yet?
Because they just don't know what they want to do, I think.
I don't think they have an idea about how they're wrapping it up at the moment.
I honestly think that they want to drag it out to Brooklyn just to say, hey, this is where it started and this is where it's going to end.
It wouldn't surprise me. Just keep the two of them facing the Riot Squad and stuff over and over again, and then, you know,
just keep like Bayley like sadly shaking her head in backstage segments every now and again.
Oh God, I hate it so much.
Yeah, I know.
They could do that though, and then that also speaks to a problem where if they do that, and we've been seeing Sasha and Bayley fighting with each other for what they started in like January is when they started fighting, right?
Yeah, because of the Rumble.
So if they start doing that all the way from January, all the way up until August, then by that point, is anybody going to give a shit that that takes up one of the 9 spots on the card or something? Then you're going to have to really do something to make it interesting, because that seems like it's not worthy. And plenty of people on the SmackDown side of things are never going to get a match on a pay-per-view. Like, when's the next time that we are going to see Ty Dillinger?
Yeah, poor guy.
Probably on the Future Endeavors list.
Like, that's what's sad about that kind of thing, because Dillinger is going to be the type of guy that he gets used regularly on SmackDown, but he's going to lose to Samoa Joe, he's going to lose to Randy Orton, he's going to lose to Nakamura, he's going to lose to Amos. He's just going to be enhancement talent for the mid-card range. And even the tag teams, too. Like, we don't have the New Day in this. The New Day were a major, major part of, like, a year or two ago, being some of the most popular people that they had in the entire company. And because they're in the tag team division, they don't matter anymore.
I honestly think, much like the first brand split, the first casualty you might see is the tag team titles become a brand unified thing, where it's like there's one red belt and one blue belt, and they go in between the brands just to get them more exposure.
Well, I don't think that's going to happen quite yet, but that's mostly just because we have enough tag teams right now. Like, you got on Raw, you've got Ascension, the Authors of Pain, the Miztourage, which they need a new name, the Leaders of Worlds, Breezango, Ziggler and McIntyre, Slater and Rhino, the Revival, and Titus Worldwide, just on Raw. So like that's enough for a tag team division on there. And we got about the same numbers on SmackDown, so they can be okay like that. But if we start seeing tag teams split up, then that's going to get a little dicey. Because this is the first of many pit stops on the way to ending the brand split. We talked before when they were announcing that they were going to do a brand split. We went over and over and over again saying it's not going to work, and you're going to, in a couple of years, you're just going to go back down to normal. And it's starting to work that way because we've got enough title belts already, that's for sure. But WWE has this kind of like, almost like a Big Bang, Big Crunch kind of thing, where they go out of their way to add like tons of belts, and it's like, let's have so many different things, and then they snap back, and then it becomes, let's get rid of all of it. You know, kind of like Vince just wakes up one day and he's just kind of like, fuck it, no more brand split.
Yeah, that's the exact thing I was thinking. Like, he just wakes up out of bed. There's too many belts. There should only be one champion for everything.
Mm-hmm. And then it becomes the WWE Universal World Heavyweight Champion or something like that. You have, it could very much happen at something like a SummerSlam this year. We could very much have the Universal Champion versus the WWE Champion, and the winner is the champion of both shows. It could happen. And this is the start of these co-branded things where this is going to be a good indicator of where we get going forward. Money in the Bank is going to be weird. Backlash is going to be weird. Extreme Rules is the main one, I think. Because the Backlash, we've got a lot of weird matches that are happening just because it's like, we've got to finish this story, we got to finish that, we got to tie this up, and it's all kind of spillover. It's Backlash, so to speak. But Money in the Bank is going to be a little bit weird because you're going to have the Money in the Bank ladder matches. Extreme Rules, I think, is going to be the real test. If we see that they've continued this idea that it's like, not everybody gets on the card and who is going to get the preferential spots, and Extreme Rules comes along, and we're talking about major players, like, say, for instance, like on the SmackDown side of things, we've got most of the main people are on this card, but we don't have Asuka. If these type of people are still kind of in our options as, well, maybe they'll get thrown in at the last minute on a pre-show, I don't know if this is going to work out really all that well.
Well, if they do start to end the split, I hope they eradicate titles quickly, because with one of the casualties of the last brand split was it was over for quite a while, but you still had the World Heavyweight title as kind of like an undercard belt on Raw and the main belt on SmackDown, and it was really weird. So if they do decide to end it, I hope they know what they're doing with the belts.
If they do that, it has to happen at Survivor Series.
Yeah, that's true.
Just champion versus champion. There can only be one champion between the shows. That makes infinitely more sense at Survivor Series than elsewhere. Unless they do it at WrestleMania, but I don't think it's going to be a WrestleMania thing. Let's put it this way. I don't think it's going to happen this year. I think it's going to happen next year. But I do think that we're going to go through this rough patch. And pre-show wise, I mean, you're given the option now. We have no match for the pre-show, so who's the person, or, well, I guess the people, because it's not one person in a match. You have to pick one match to go on the card. And for the most part, Brock Lesnar's out of the running. You know he's not going to compete. Sanity and Andrade Cien Almas are being held back. They're not going to compete. Big Show is still injured. Dean Ambrose, Jason Jordan, all the injury type of people like that, they're out of the way. But you got a lot of people to pick from. So, Callum, I'll pitch it to you. You have to pick one match and only one match to get whoever you can on the card that you think is missing the most. Who do you go for?
Well, that's easy. You go for Mike Kanellis versus Victor from the Ascension.
Damn, you stole my idea.
Okay, but who wins?
Connor. See? You did steal my idea.
Yeah. No, if I had to choose one, it would be I'd probably go with I think you could do something with Chad Gable. I always like seeing Chad Gable on the card. So I'd probably go with a Chad Gable. It's bad to say Jinder Mahal because like it makes most sense because they've recently feuded and Chad Gable got an upset win. But yeah, that match probably makes the most sense. So Chad Gable versus Jinder Mahal.
What about you, Rob? Who's your pick?
Just because I want to see him make big moves on the Raw roster, Baron Corbin runs through No Way Jose.
I think I probably would go with Ronda Rousey.
On the pre-show?
Yeah, I think that it's kind of a little bit strange that she's not competing already again. And maybe I would just go with Ronda and Natalya team up against maybe 2 members of the Riot Squad or something like that. But if not that, because I don't think that that's necessarily the right feud that we've got going on right now, then I probably would just default to Elias and Bobby Roode, because I'm certainly not going to give that spot to Kurt Hawkins or something. Another opportunity would be the Bar versus the New Day, but I don't think that that's something that has to happen here. I think that can play out on SmackDown. So
I can easily see that becoming the new filler tag team match, though.
Yeah, for that'll be the next like building up whoever the next challenger is for the titles. I
wouldn't be surprised if on the pre-show we get some segment that puts Ronda Rousey versus Mickie James.
Just a straight up singles match.
Her. Yeah.
I think they're waiting.
I don't know. I'm already surprised that they've used her on every Raw since WrestleMania.
That I'm surprised about too. I remember even in the Mega Maniacs one day, I'm like, oh, okay, we get Brock Lesnar, so that means we don't get Ronda Rousey. Then a minute later, she shows up, and I'm like, yeah, never mind. But I think that they are going to wait until after the Nia Jax Alexa Bliss stuff. But we'll get into that in a minute or so. The first indicator of kind of the way that this is going to work out to me, I think, and this is a bad sign, is we randomly have Braun Strowman and Bobby Lashley against Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. This, to me, screams Vince McMahon realized that Braun Strowman wasn't on the card and Bobby Lashley wasn't on the card. And he went, fuck it, just put him in a tag team match against Owens and Zayn.
Does this not piss anybody else off? For the whole road to WrestleMania, it was like, Braun Strowman, he needs a tag team partner. I don't need a tag team partner. I'm going to team with the Kid for the next 4 weeks. Up to the next pay-per-view, he's exclusively teaming with Bobby Lashley.
Mm-hmm. Kind of makes you think that maybe the plan was Bobby Lashley, and they were like, well, we don't want to give you the tag team titles, because then who's going to take the tag team titles away from you? Let's give it to Nicholas over here instead. And but that is also, what's weird about this whole dynamic is that means you've got this Strowman and Lashley thing that has happened every week, essentially, after WrestleMania, where this could have been the case of where they could have just won those tag titles. And if they would have won those tag titles, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn could have been the #1 contenders to those tag titles. Yet we don't have the Raw tag titles being represented. So we have a repeat of what we had on Monday Night Raw, a random tag team match with nothing on the line, with 2 people that weren't tag team partners, that have been teaming up a lot, against 2 people that aren't the tag team champions. And it's kind of like, well, you value tag teams, but you don't value the tag team titles?
Well, they don't value tag teams. They value 2 single superstars they've put as a tag team for the time being.
Right. They value tag teams only as a means to put over single stars.
Yeah. And this match is like in a card where you're supposed to be like picking the best of Raw and the best of SmackDown and putting it into one mega show. This is a match that we saw on Raw 2 weeks ago. An exact same duplicate of a match that we saw on Raw 2 weeks ago, which Braun Strowman and Bobby Lashley won quite comprehensively. And then they were both involved in a 6-man tag in the most recent episode of Raw, which Braun Strowman won quite convincingly.
Mm-hmm. So it's like, all right, well, then is Braun Strowman just going to win this? Or is this going to be Bobby Lashley turns heel on Braun Strowman? Because it would be a major mistake to turn Braun Strowman heel.
Well, I think it's the idea of this match it's as much as I like them, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn are on the just on the periphery of this thing. This is about building towards an eventual Bobby Lashley versus Braun Strowman match.
Yeah.
Which will either happen at Money in the Bank or it will happen at Extreme Rules. One or the other, and then the winner of that match will be the next challenger for the Universal Championship.
Mm-hmm. And that is something that is very flip-floppy because we don't know what the hell is going on with Brock Lesnar. And the way that they've been doing this whole thing with Roman Reigns saying, like, oh, I'm the rightful winner and all that, it kind of seems to indicate that they're going to do another Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns match, which is like, you just really want to beat that fucking dead horse, don't you? Does that happen at Money in the Bank? Does that happen at Extreme Rules, or does it happen at SummerSlam?
I really think Lesnar needs to work one of the two before SummerSlam, because if you don't have him at Money in the Bank, that means that all the Raw Money in the Bank slots are going to go to main eventers, and that likely somebody from SmackDown will win that briefcase.
Well, I'm working more of the opinion that I can see Lesnar working Money in the Bank, and maybe he drops the title to Roman Reigns there. And maybe we get SummerSlam is Bobby Lashley versus Roman Reigns or something like that. But at the same time, it's like, well, Brock Lesnar didn't lose at WrestleMania, and Brock Lesnar didn't lose at Greatest Royal Rumble, so how many more times are they going to do this Roman Reigns thing? It's sort of like, if they do it again, he has to win it. And nobody's going to give a shit if he wins it. If they do it again and he loses, then it's like, people are going to be even more upset. Like, you can't just keep upsetting everybody. Nobody's going to care about this.
When you say that you want Roman, or you think Roman's going to be Brock the next time they fight, I think that's just what you want coming out, because you seemed pretty sure that he was going to take it at Greatest Royal Rumble, and they still went with Lesnar. I have no idea what they're doing or why they're doing it, but
see, the thing is, I don't want that at all. Like, I don't want these two to fight ever again. I'm not even talking about, like, in a couple years. I don't want that another Roman Reigns Brock Lesnar match. And I really don't want Roman Reigns holding that title either. I really want this to just be, I mean, if I'm going to book the way that I want to book, this wouldn't be a case anyway, because we never would have had this Roman Reigns Brock Lesnar match at WrestleMania to begin with. But if I'm going to put the title on anybody, I'm going to put it on Braun Strowman. And I don't want to see Braun Strowman versus Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam. But I'm thinking that Bobby Lashley is the one that wins it. And I don't know, like, the way that this Strowman and Lashley thing is going, if they feud with each other, Lashley is the one that needs to turn. Yet, if they do Bobby Lashley turning, and they have him, say, beat Braun Strowman at Money in the Bank and or at Extreme Rules, and he gets a number one contender spot, and then you have Bobby Lashley versus Brock Lesnar, it's a little weird to me. But who the fuck knows? It's like, this is the most chaotic time that we've ever had in WWE for what I can remember, as far as, like, let's just give titles to people that make no sense, and let's keep it on people that make no sense and stuff. And, you know, we've had a kid win a title recently, and we've had Asuka lose her undefeated streak to somebody who doesn't need to beat the streak, and then Carmella cashes in right afterward, and we've, like, it's insanity. So, Strowman and Lashley, I agree with Callum here, it seems like it's building up to just a feud between the two of them, but I almost don't see where the feud starts and where it ends, and who turns and who wins, and where they go from here. And
well, I don't think it's going to be a feud in the sense of being a feud between the two of them. I think it's just leading to a match, which is a babyface versus whatever Lashley's supposed to be, which is supposed to be a babyface, but isn't exactly getting the reaction that a babyface would entail, especially not at Braun Strowman's level. But I think they want Bobby Lashley to be cheered. And, well, I'll just spoil it now of going on the lines. I think Lashley's the one that wins this feud, wins the match overall, and then is the one to challenge Lesnar at SummerSlam. I think Lesnar will be kept. Yeah. Well, as close to a babyface, he's the babyface in the sense that they think Roman Reigns is the babyface. So whether he's cheered or not, he'll be the babyface in that match. And I could see him winning it. And I don't think Lesnar will be competing until SummerSlam either.
I really hope that he does, but I do see Lashley beating Lesnar. But as far as this match, I think, even though I know you guys are putting up a pretty strong case against it, I think Strowman turns on Lashley and Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn get the win because they need to win this match. They are marketable as a duo, and they do need to win this match, even though I don't like their position as still being the anti-authority figure duo. I think they should win here, maybe even get those Raw tag titles so that they could be on two people that are relevant. I just really hope that whatever happens with Strowman and Lashley and the inevitable match with Lesnar, that it happens before SummerSlam, because the Raw side of things is such a mess right now.
See, I don't know. Part of me is thinking that this is as simple as Braun Strowman and Lashley win again, and there's no reason for it to be on the card other than Vince was like, put them on the card. Like, that's just it. Because this reeks of 2007 Vince McMahon. Like, that whole, we don't know what to do, let's put two people in a tag team match because, damn it, they can't be not on the card. You know, like, it doesn't matter if you've seen it on Raw. Won't people want to see it again? These are big names, damn it. Like, that kind of thing. Like, it strikes me as that kind of a thing. But who's to say the reason why they haven't been trying to do this hasn't been specifically because they want to do something with, like, maybe Lashley and Strowman. Well, all right. So I was going to say maybe Lashley and Strowman don't get along and then that causes some kind of a problem. They've had no issues recently. Like, there's been no argument between the two.
They didn't even confront each other over the fact that Strowman quite easily tossed Lashley out at the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, there's been no indication of like a feud, which also kind of makes me go, maybe the reason why is because they want to start a feud here. Or maybe the reason why is because we're looking too much into it and there isn't a feud. And this is just as simple as we don't know what to do with Strowman and Lashley. They can beat up Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. I'm leaning more towards that, where it's just Strowman and Lashley win. If something happens where there's some kind of a miscommunication and Lashley bumps into Strowman and there's like a quick pin or something like that, or maybe Lashley turns heel, or maybe Strowman turns heel. I hope not. That'd be such a mistake, I think. Or maybe we get like Owens and Sami Zayn win the match by some kind of weird count out or bullshit. Count out or disqualification bullshit. Maybe something like that, but I'm going to go just simple Strowman and Lashley win.
Kevin and Sami.
Strowman and Lashley are going to win.
So let's switch over to the United States Championship. We've got the original match of Randy Orton going into WrestleMania with the title, drops to Jinder Mahal, then it sets up, even though he needs to do that #1 contenders match for some fucking reason, he's going to fight Jinder Mahal, who drops it to Jeff Hardy, moves over and does all that, and blah, 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 blah. We end up with Jeff Hardy versus Randy Orton. Shelton Benjamin got a win over Randy Orton, doesn't matter. And there's no triple threat, which kind of makes me go, all right, Jeff Hardy's winning. Just, that's it. Because what would be the point of putting it back on Randy Orton when he had the title going into WrestleMania? Then you're just switching it to Jinder, to switch it to Jeff, to switch it back to Randy? What the fuck? Why?
Because, Tony, the United States Championship has mystical qualities and it cannot be held by one person for too long. That has been the case for over a year now. Someone holds it, they lose it to the next person they fight. Simple as. But no, I completely agree that it needs some stability now. And if they were going to take the title from Randy at WrestleMania just to give it to Jinder, just to give it to Jeff, and just to move it to another show, then we'll move it from one show to the other show and then back to the original show that it was on.
Then why not just keep it on Orton because he's already on SmackDown?
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
And it would have been a much more popular decision than putting it onto Jinder Mahal, which nobody wanted to see at WrestleMania. And now it's on somebody that people do like in Jeff Hardy. So
maybe there is kind of one of those, not ignorant, more just, I guess like blind type of mentality where maybe going into WrestleMania, maybe their idea was we want Jinder Mahal to hold the United States Championship. He'll win it at WrestleMania. And we don't want him to win it from Bobby Roode. Let's give the title to Randy Orton because he can be a Grand Slam champion that way. Then they give the title to Jinder Mahal. And they announce the next week, we're going to do the Superstar Shakeup. And they go, we really actually just want Jinder on Monday Night Raw. Somebody goes behind the stage and goes, yeah, but we have Seth Rollins. And they go, fuck, all right, well then, I guess he'll lose that United States title. Maybe he'll win the Intercontinental in the future, and we'll get around to it that way. But now we need to put the title on somebody to move him over to SmackDown. All right, well, who's going over to SmackDown? We got Jeff Hardy, and we got the Bar, and whatever. And then they go, well, Jeff Hardy can win the United States title. He could be another Grand Slam champion that way. And then they go, back to the idea that maybe the plan was Jinder Mahal beats Randy Orton for the title at WrestleMania, and then Randy Orton wins the title back at Money in the Bank. Maybe they just did this some roundabout dumbass way to do that because somebody wanted Jinder Mahal on Raw. It could happen. I hope not. And it sounds dumb, but I'm trying to get into the mentality of why the hell has all this shit been happening,
You can't get into Vince McMahon's head. There's nobody has the ability to do that. Only he does.
I don't think even he does sometimes, but that's what makes this stuff so difficult because they could very easily just throw random decisions at this pay-per-view. And it could be you throw the pen on the ground and you're like, what am I fucking predicting here? They don't even know what they're doing. It makes the most sense for Jeff Hardy to retain. So I'm going to go with Jeff Hardy retaining just because that doesn't seem crazy.
I hope he doesn't because I have Hardy and Rollins in my idea of the Money in the Bank ladder match. And that would mean no Universal title, no Intercontinental title, and no US title at the next pay-per-view. So something has to give. Either way, I see Jeff Hardy could easily win here. If they feel like maybe doing a series with these two, maybe Randy wins it here. It's really hard to predict, but just for the sake of peace of mind, I'll go with Jeff Hardy retaining. But I want to throw this out there because at the Greatest Royal Rumble, Randy got such a massive pop. And it got me thinking, Randy really is one of the most over people on the roster. What do you guys think? Is Randy, is that me being of the generation that grew up in the mid-2000s, Randy's so big? Or do you guys think Randy Orton's legitimately one of the biggest main event stars that they have?
It's difficult to say. He's unbelievably popular for somebody that's been around for as long as he has. But I think it's mainly, I don't want to say the things I see with him is the fact that he's a very sound technical wrestler. He's got the best finishing move in the entire company, and he's a 13-time world champion who's been shoved down our throats quite a lot. So we've gone to the point where a lot of people see him as kind of like the anti-Cena, the one that we wanted to see get to the top, even though they wanted to push Cena all the time, where realistically they just wanted to push both of them all the time, and they just shoved both of them down our throats at the same time. But Randy Orton was more of the bad boy, so we got behind him more.
What do you think, Tony?
I think that he is a Bret Hart, where he's pretty much at the top of the game for a long time, but not many people know him outside of wrestling. Bret Hart was insanely popular in Canada, but 1994, he's top of the WWE, and you go and walk around the streets and you go, who's this guy? And you show them a picture of Bret Hart and they go, I don't know, some kind of maybe a wrestler. They're not going to go, oh, it's Bret the Hitman Hart. And there's a level of people like Hulk Hogan, John Cena, The Rock. I'd argue not even necessarily Stone Cold, but there's that level of wow, everybody knows this guy. And even people like Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker don't necessarily get to that level sometimes. And Randy Orton strikes me as the type of guy who, he's a legend. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. People love him. He's been around for so many years. He's won so many titles. At any point, he can arguably win any title, and it's not going to seem too weird. but at the same time, he's not the focal point. And the next person, by the way, that I think that gets to that level, and he's close to getting to that level right now, is Seth Rollins, where he's a top guy, can win any title at any time, main eventer, people love him, but you show a picture on the side of the road to random people, and out of 100 people, maybe 20 people know him, you know?
Yeah.
So it's a little bit weird. And I don't think that Randy Orton's the type of guy that needs that United States title right back now. And I also think that the WWE Championship match factors heavily into this. Because SmackDown's weird. SmackDown currently has AJ Styles, Daniel Bryan, Jeff Hardy, Randy Orton. They're the 4 main baby faces in that main event upper mid-card type of thing. And then we've got, on the heel side of things, we've got Shinsuke Nakamura, The Miz, Samoa Joe, and I don't know, number 4 would maybe be Andrade?
Boy, you really don't want to say Cass, huh?
Who?
You really don't want to say Big Cass?
Oh, God, yeah, Big Cass. Totally forgot about Big Cass. Yeah, so Big Cass is, number 4, and then Andrade would be number 5. And you have to kind of not blow through all these feuds too quick, because we still need to have a couple big matches for some of these big pay-per-views coming up. So we know that we're going to get, at some point, Daniel Bryan versus The Miz. We know we're going to get Daniel Bryan versus Nakamura, and we know we're going to get Daniel Bryan versus Samoa Joe. Those are the 3 main people that Bryan can feud with for SummerSlam, Survivor Series, and WrestleMania. Unless we switch some people around or something like that. And there's always heel turns and babyface turns, but I don't know about you guys. Can you really see Cass or Miz or Joe or Nakamura turning babyface anytime soon? I don't think so.
No, not at all.
Randy Orton seemed like exactly the type of guy that could be turning heel, but we don't have enough room for him to turn heel. And if we've got somebody like Randy Orton versus Jeff Hardy and Orton turns heel, who the fuck do you have fighting Nakamura or Joe or whoever becomes the next champion after Styles? You need Randy Orton to fight that guy. And it makes me kind of think that that's even more of a reason that Jeff Hardy retains the title here. Randy Orton moves away from the United States title situation. He wrestles in the Money in the Bank ladder match, loses the Money in the Bank ladder match, doesn't win it. And come Extreme Rules, maybe SummerSlam, depending on the scenario, we get Randy Orton versus whoever the heel champion is at the time. And whoever it is, he loses. Randy Orton's not winning that title yet. But that's kind of where I'm thinking we go from here.
Yeah, I'll agree.
For that to happen, Hardy has to retain. And Hardy can feud with Shelton Benjamin. Hardy can feud with Almas. He can feud with, if you want to put Big Cass in there, when the Daniel Bryan feud's done, then Big Cass can be the one that holds the title or something. There's a little bit of flexibility when it comes to that. So Hardy strikes me more as the mid-carder that can drop the title to anybody that's in that fluctuation than Randy Orton does.
Although I really want to put this out there, if Hardy somehow gets in the Money in the Bank ladder match and wins it, then you know that Vince is a very stubborn person who wanted to put the belt on him 10 years ago, or the briefcase on him 10 years ago, never got the chance to, so he just does it here now that he's got him back.
I don't think he's going to be in that match. I think he's just going to be defending the title. But we have plenty of other matches too. That's the thing too. Like, we can only really fit 10 people in each Money in the Bank ladder match. Beyond that point, it gets way too crazy. And if you've got maybe the Universal title is on the line, WWE title could be on the line, maybe the Intercontinental, maybe the United States, maybe you don't even have some of these matches. Like, maybe you don't have the Raw and the SmackDown women's title on the line. Maybe the women's Money in the Bank ladder match is the only one that happens. And we don't know where WWE is going here. It's a little bit difficult. I'm going Hardy, though. Callum?
Hardy.
Yep, Hardy.
All right, everybody's going Hardy. That means, no matter what, the United States title's staying on SmackDown, which means the Intercontinental Championship match between Seth Rollins and The Miz dictates, by default, Seth Rollins has to retain that title, right?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, this is about as easy a prediction you can make in this one.
Yep. And the sad part is that's all we need to talk about when it comes to that.
I'm gonna just throw this out there. Miz Taraj tries to help the Miz, ends up helping Rollins, and that's continues that weird side story.
Could be. No matter what, Miz isn't winning.
Miz is not winning.
No, he's needed on SmackDown to, whether it's engaging in the feud with Daniel Bryan or slotting into maybe going off the United States Championship now that he can't fight for the Intercontinental Championship. But yeah, Rollins is doing, especially with Brock Lesnar not being around, you need a strong champion on Raw, and Rollins is about as good as you can get at the moment.
Mm-hmm. He's getting way too much positive treatment to just drop the title to somebody who's on a different brand and then not have a mid-card title on that brand. It just makes no sense. We've got the Raw Women's Championship is on the line. Nia Jax against Alexa Bliss. I don't think this is as much of a guarantee as I would have thought that it would be. There's a chance I think that Alexa Bliss might take this title.
Seeing as they've been starting to do an Alexa, Mickey, Ronda, Natalia thing, if they want to go with Alexa versus Ronda just to get the title onto Ronda, maybe they do it that way. I think it would be really weird to do that whole body positivity storyline with Nia, which I'm not a fan of, but I'm sure somebody out there was, and then have her lose it first major title defense. It just seems strange, and it would really show almost an obsession with Alexa, because Alexa's been a champion for the majority of the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but
I mean, she's very good, but it gets, and I say that in the sense that her character's very good. She's amazing on the microphone, and her in-ring skills aren't bad. They're definitely progressing and going in the right direction, but she's still not at the level of a lot of people on the roster. But it does point to it, like, it's not like she's Stone Cold or something who should be holding the championship 9 months out of the 12 months of the year all the time. She's held the title long enough. I think it's time to give it to somebody else. And it's on Nia now. And Nia is admittedly still green and still developing, but she is getting popular. She's gotten popular through this storyline because it presents her in a very positive light as a very body conscious, well, not body conscious, but a very healthy attitude towards different shapes, sizes, like the fact that she's not like most girls, obviously. And I think down the line, she's going to be in Ronda Rousey's crosshairs, and that match has a bit more of a big feel about it than Alexa Bliss versus Ronda Rousey, which should really just be a squash.
So this is where I'm thinking we're going. Even though I think that there's a chance Alexa wins that title, I don't think it's happening here because of the fact that I think that they're going to get backlash, no pun intended, if they do drop that title from Nia, because then people are going to go, oh, what, you can't even give the big girl a decent title reign? And we just went through this whole thing with the women not wrestling in the Greatest Royal Rumble. There's plenty of criticism to go around. I'm imagining that this is just Alexa Bliss loses, and she and Mickey start a feud with Ronda and Natalia, and maybe at Money in the Bank, if maybe, I mean, this is tough. Money in the Bank could or might not have Ronda Rousey in that match. It's weird because you would think that she should be competing in that, but do they really want to put her in a ladder match so early? And do they really want to give Ronda Rousey a loss if she doesn't win the Money in the Bank? Or do they give her the Money in the Bank and have her carry around a Money in the Bank briefcase? I'm leaning more towards she doesn't compete in that Money in the Bank ladder match. And if they don't have her competing in there, and they don't have her wrestling at this card, they're going to want something for her to do. So you get Alexa Bliss and Mickie James versus Natalia and Ronda Rousey at Money in the Bank on the pre-show or something like that, or maybe just on the regular card. And Nia Jax doesn't defend the title. And Bayley and Sasha and Ember Moon, and who else we have on Monday Night Raw?
Mickey.
The Riot Squad.
Well, Mickey would be in the tag match. The Riot Squad. They probably wouldn't bother with Alicia.
Dana Brooke.
So you got the Riot Squad, Sasha, Bayley, and Ember for the most part. And then on SmackDown, you've got, say,
Charlotte, Asuka.
Absolution, Asuka, Becky, the Iconics, Naomi. That's kind of around the range that you've got going on there. Maybe Charlotte, depending on what happens with there. But that's plenty of people that can be in that women's Money in the Bank ladder match.
I don't think that it's weird with all the controversy surrounding Greatest Royal Rumble. I wondered if they were going to really spotlight the women, and I don't think that they have either match that's a real strong spotlight for the modern day abilities of the women's division.
Because say Maharaja.
If you think about, you know, the Alexa Nia feud is very much based on body issues and very petty things that don't show too much of a progressive mindset. And Carmella and Charlotte, and really even what they're doing with the Iconics, is also very kind of 2010 Divas division, you know, lay cool, brattiness kind of.
Yeah, it's the catty feud, and both matches have a smaller, bitchy blonde who can't win a lot of the matches unless there's some kind of like cheating against somebody who is a more standard. And not to say that Charlotte's bigger, but like Charlotte is more
athletic.
muscular and doesn't have like a petite frame to her. Neither does Nia Jax. And it's kind of like the bigger woman who is the baby face and she can fight and she's tough versus like, oh, I'm just hot and that's it. It's very kind of odd. But it's also weird that it's a flipped script because one of them, Nia Jax, is the champion. The other one, Carmella, is the champion. And
I just don't think that this is a very good spotlight for their women's division. With that being said, I think both champions retain because there's really no reason to flip the titles back right now.
Yeah, I'm going to go with both champions too because I think that Nia just beats Alexa, whereas the Iconics interfere and cost Charlotte. What about you, Callum?
I'm agreeing that Nia Jax is going to win quite comfortably, even though we might see Mickey try and get involved. But I can still see Ronda Rousey getting involved in terms of just evening the odds, essentially, when Mickey James gets involved. For the SmackDown one, I think Charlotte's going to win the match, but she's not going to win the title.
Just some DQ or something?
Yeah, I can imagine Carmella either DQing or getting counted out. Which I know is a lame thing, but it's a continuation. It's a way that you can show that Charlotte is definitely the better out of the two of them, but Carmella's going to keep hold of the title any way that she can.
That's my issue with a lot of matches like this, because it's just sort of like, all right, you book the match where Carmella beats Charlotte. It makes sense. The Iconics attacked Charlotte, Carmella cashes in, she's a heel. I get it. And you did this whole thing with Asuka and Charlotte, where Charlotte was the one that beats the streak, and then ever since then Asuka like just doesn't matter. It's kind of a shame. But when you have somebody who only wins because of outside interference and stuff, and it's like going into this, you know that Charlotte is the better one than Carmella. So really, don't we just need to skip to the end of this match? Isn't it just sort of like, all right, how does Carmella retain, or does she just lose? That's all that matters. It's not going to be a stellar match. Either Charlotte dominates and loses through some kind of bullshit at the end, or they do that kind of thing where it's like Charlotte kind of oversells a little bit with Carmella, and it's like Carmella does like a lame kind of kick, and then Charlotte's all just like, oh my god, oh my stomach hurts me the whole rest of the match and stuff, and it's like,
what should you say? Really? She gets like spears into the barricade or something like that.
Yeah,
it was something that Charlotte does to herself rather than something that Carmella does to her.
Or like Charlotte starts climbing up the ropes to do a moonsault, and Carmella kicks her, and she falls, and then it becomes like, oh, she must have tweaked her knee, and now she's going to work on the knee the whole time. Like, I don't really care. And this is representation of a lot of the matches on this card, I really kind of just don't care, and I want to skip past Backlash. Like, I'm just curious about, did they fuck up with switching a bunch of titles or something, or are we going to go back into normal? Like, Nia Jax versus Alexa Bliss. If Alexa wins the title, well, that sucks for Nia. But if Nia wins the title, or retains the title, then, alright, well, then we just wasted time having a rematch, kind of. It's all rematches and stuff, and it's just, I don't know.
That's what Backlash has always been.
But they're usually more compelling. The usual Backlash card is typically more compelling than this one.
That Greatest Royal Rumble really hurt a lot of this, I think.
Yeah.
Now, it helped in the sense of Big Cass versus Daniel Bryan, because then we got a situation where Daniel Bryan was really getting up there. He's really about to win this match, and then Big Cass throws him out. I like that. This is another thing, too, where it's sort of like, all right, flip a coin. Are you going to go with Big Cass wins, and the whole point is so he can go, I told you, I'm better, and then Daniel Bryan goes, I'm going to prove that David can beat Goliath? Or do you go with Daniel Bryan wins, and then Big Cass bitches and complains the next two nights later, on SmackDown, and he goes, that was a fluke, and I want to beat him up again. The feud's continuing, and it's just going to be the same story. So whoever wins this match loses the next one, and that's what it is. Like, you know?
We've beat it into the ground a little bit, but it's still so weird to me that Bryan is just kind of, so Backlash, it's Daniel Bryan versus Big Cass, and that's the match. And because, my God, Bryan is a full-time wrestler again, and it should feel a lot less whatever than it does. You know what I mean?
You mean like it's kind of anticlimactic?
Yeah, it's just so whatever. Bryan's wrestling, yeah, and that's just like, so strange.
One of the most popular wrestlers of the modern era is back after such a lengthy layoff, and he's immediately a mid-carder again.
It's like even when Shawn came back, they never had him, at least for a while. Just, oh hey, Shawn Michaels is gonna wrestle Carlito at the pay-per-view.
That's a good analogy. Carlito's around the same level as Big Cass.
Bryan has to lose here, but Bryan has to lose due to outside interference from The Miz. Otherwise, if Cass just beats him, then we're already devaluing Daniel Bryan, and you could say it's fake. Does it really matter? Yeah, because Bryan should be the biggest thing in the company right now. And honestly, if they would have made it the main event a triple threat for the title, nobody would have complained. Bryan should be a big deal. So I do think he loses here. And I think he loses because of The Miz, because they want Big Cass to be a, God, pun not intended, but a big deal. And I just think this is that classic story of Vince needs his big monster.
I'm kind of going on a similar wavelength. I think whether or not The Miz does get involved or not, you could do a situation where Miz has already lost in a Intercontinental Championship match. He's depressed. Bryan comes up to him backstage, ribs him a little bit about it. Then Miz comes out, gets involved in the match, and Big Cass wins. And this will play a little bit into what I think is happening with the WWE Championship match. I think they're priming Big Cass for a WWE Championship match in the near future. Whether it's he's either competing in the Money in the Bank ladder match or he's fighting for the championship at Money in the Bank, I think, is one of the two options.
I might say Extreme Rules or even SummerSlam, because
it definitely won't be SummerSlam. He's not big enough. He's one of the guys that you throw into a championship match in the proviso that he's going to lose it. You can't put him into. I think the SummerSlam is like a big deal type match.
You might think that, but look at last year. They did kind of lukewarm Nakamura versus Jinder Mahal, and it ended with a low blow.
Yeah, but I think that was at the time with Jinder as the champion. You go with a sense of like, well, it doesn't really matter who he faces; it's not going to be very good anyway. Whereas in this case, it's likely that the WWE Championship going in SummerSlam is going to be held by either AJ Styles or Nakamura or someone like a Samoa Joe or something of that ilk. So you can really make the WWE Championship a big match at SummerSlam. And Big Cass is big, but he's not like a big star.
Well, this is the proviso. We know that no matter what happens here, Styles, Nakamura, or Joe, one of those three is holding that title at SummerSlam.
Yeah.
So we almost kind of have to book retroactively, where if Big Cass is going to get a title shot, if he gets a title shot, it has to be against Styles in that scenario.
Yeah.
Which means Styles has to retain the WWE Championship.
Which
Or
like,
he
No.
loses it and then wins it back, which is just like, stop flip-flopping these fucking titles. You're not going to do Big Cass versus Shinsuke Nakamura, and you're not going to do Big Cass versus Samoa Joe. It's just not going to happen. But
then again, they have a penchant for these. Oh, let's do a fatal 5-way, and it's Bryan, Cass, Nakamura, Joe, and Styles at Extreme Rules.
they could do something like that. And that gets all like, then you just throw everybody in the mix and hit the blender and see what happens. But I'm more of the opinion that I think that Cass is going to feud with either Jeff Hardy or Randy Orton following this. And that's sort of dependent upon when do they want this feud to end too. And Money in the Bank is weird. This is why I keep bringing Money in the Bank around here, because Money in the Bank, we don't know if it's going to be a 4-hour event plus a pre-show, like one of the big 4, like if this is a big 5 event, or if it's going to be 3 hours plus a pre-show.
I think it'll be 3 hours plus a pre-show, because I think they really want the big 4 to be the big 4.
Well, last year, before they started doing this whole idea of the co-branded events, the news reports going around where Money in the Bank has been upgraded to now it's the big 5. That went around for a couple of months. And then they started saying, all right, we're getting rid of Battleground, we're getting rid of No Mercy, and we're getting rid of Great Balls of Fire, and they're going to be co-branded. But that was the mentality before. So they haven't said anything one way or another. And we've got this sort of Royal Rumble in January is big co-branded. Then you got Fastlane and Elimination Chamber, that's split. And then WrestleMania is big. Backlash is co-branded, but it's not big. Money in the Bank, that could be big. Then Extreme Rules, not big. SummerSlam, big. Then we go to Hell in a Cell, which isn't. And then TLC, which isn't big. And then Survivor Series, which is big. They could be doing this kind of like every other month is one of the big events. And if that's the case, Money in the Bank becomes one of those big events. That extra hour is huge in determining who's going to be wrestling in the Money in the Bank ladder matches, what titles are going to be on the line too, because we can only have about 5 people from each show on those Money in the Bank ladder matches. You figure the 2 Money in the Bank ladder matches take up an hour. We still have 3 more hours left to fill. That means you need the Intercontinental title, the United States title, the tag team titles, whatever the case may be. And do we get Brock Lesnar versus either Bobby Lashley or Braun Strowman or Roman Reigns? Do we get no Brock Lesnar? Do we get the WWE title on the line? Who fights for the title? There's a lot of factors like that. And Big Cass, I think, is in a scenario where he's the focal point of this feud. And the point of it is to use Daniel Bryan's popularity to boost up Big Cass. Maybe Cass wins this match. Maybe Cass loses and the feud continues and whatever. But the whole point is people are going to boo Big Cass because he's beating up Daniel Bryan and they want to cheer Daniel Bryan. Coming out of this, Daniel Bryan can lose, and people are still going to go, I want him to fight for the championship. Big Cass, if he loses, nobody's going to care. And I think he wins this. Either he wins this match, or he considerably wins going forward on SmackDown, and possibly even in a separate match at Money in the Bank. But he doesn't win the Money in the Bank ladder match. I don't think he fights for the title at Money in the Bank. And I'm going to go with Jeff Hardy retains that title and Randy Orton moves up to that main event type of spot kind of thing. Whereas Big Cass could be the next United States champion. So I also think that they're going to keep Cass and Joe away from each other. It's sort of like...
There's no reason for them to touch.
Cass needs many months until he gets to the point where people would buy him as a WWE champion, and I think that United States title is better suited for him. He could be the guy that beats the shit out of Jeff Hardy, and he holds that US title for a while.
Right now, the only enjoyable thing about this match to me is that there's going to be a legitimate babyface and a legitimate heel.
Oh, yeah, that's a guarantee. Cass is getting booed. Bryan's getting cheered. It's not going to be a Reigns kind of situation.
I'm a fan of Cass, but I'm not a fan of the, hey, I'm a big guy, so let's bring out a midget. Now, I'm not like saying, oh, you shouldn't be making fun of midgets, but, you know, it just seems like a very stale, old, cheap heat kind of idea. And if that's the way his booking is primarily going to be, I don't see it being an enjoyable run with Big Cass.
Well, I'm going Cass. Who are you guys going with?
Cass by shenanigans.
Yeah, Cass wins.
Well, this ties into our talk about the WWE Championship because it's a no disqualification match between AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura, their third match together.
In less than 4 weeks.
Normally dictates that in that scenario, it's usually somebody wins, somebody else wins, and then somebody wins their rematch, and they kind of like bounce back and forth. But it's been AJ Styles wins, AJ Styles retains. If Shinsuke Nakamura doesn't win the title here,
I stole this idea from Callum because he said it during the Greatest Royal Rumble post show, and I had incorporated it into my Triple Threat article this week.
At least you give me credit.
If Nakamura doesn't win here, we might really need to think about Nakamura just not ever being champion.
Very much so. That's why I think he's winning.
I absolutely think he's winning.
And that's why I think he's losing.
Huh.
Oh.
Interesting. Why?
Because I don't think they want him to be WWE champion. I think they've...
Go ahead.
I think they've set their minds on AJ Styles being a big hit as WWE champion. I think they want to push the heel side like higher up in terms of they want Big Cass to get big matches. They want Samoa Joe to have big matches. They want The Miz to have big matches for the title. Whereas if Shinsuke Nakamura becomes champion, he's got Jeff Hardy, who's already a big deal, Daniel Bryan, who's already a big deal, Randy Orton, who's already a big deal. The Miz is a big deal, but like he's been stuck in the mid-card championship level for so long that if they want him to be elevated to the WWE championship level, he needs to be fighting a babyface. If they want Big Cass to be a future main event star, he needs to be fighting at WWE championship level. And I think they're moving towards an AJ Styles Daniel Bryan match at SummerSlam or an AJ Styles Samoa Joe match at SummerSlam. Especially with Samoa Joe coming out during AJ Styles' promo segment on SmackDown. I think that's kind of the way they want to do it. That doesn't mean the championship necessarily has to be involved, but I just don't think... I think they're fine with Nakamura being a mid-card guy going forward.
The Joe thing really threw me off because I have it in my head, Nakamura wins here. They have an Iron Man match next month. AJ wins, and then we move on to AJ and Joe at Extreme Rules with whomever winning that facing Daniel Bryan at SummerSlam for the WWE title.
There's so many options that they can go with here, and this makes it so difficult to try to figure out where they're going because we were talking all about before, like the idea of Big Cass being in the title picture, the idea of Randy Orton being in the title picture.
One of the things that really, one of the things that really changed my mind on this was because I originally thought that Nakamura was definitely going to win this. The thing that really changed my mind was the no disqualification aspect. Because I thought, well, if Nakamura's going to win, he's going to win by hitting AJ with a low blow behind the referee's back and then essentially cheating to win. In this match, he could just do that in front of the referee and win the match. And so I think that's going to be like a really close near fall, like it was at the Greatest Royal Rumble, but more of just like AJ actually just kicking out of it. And you also do the thing of, WWE's way of booking in that Nakamura was the one that was standing tall at the end of SmackDown, so he's undoubtedly going to be the one that loses the match afterwards. That's usually the way they do things. So,
well, I'm not ready to write Nakamura off.
I'm not writing him
just
off
yet.
I just like, I'm of the sense that he's had a lot of opportunities, and I would have thought if he would have been WWE champion by now, they would have given it to him.
I just feel like in the modern day, with modern day guys,
every fucking time.
You look at the way that they book them during the Big Four when there are guys like Lesnar and Cena around, and Nakamura for the last Big Four has been in very high-profile matches. WWE Championship at SummerSlam, main event of Survivor Series, won the Royal Rumble, WWE Championship at WrestleMania. So they do see profit in him. I think he'll get the win here, and it'll be a 1-month reign. He'll kind of get that Ziggler, hey, I was champion once kind of run.
It's so difficult because I can see being a scenario where the same exact matches happen and it just matters, is it for the title? Like, we could get AJ Styles versus Daniel Bryan at SummerSlam. Or we could get Shinsuke Nakamura versus Daniel Bryan at SummerSlam. If that's the case, does Nakamura hold the title and Daniel Bryan challenges and possibly beats him for the title at SummerSlam? That's if you want Daniel Bryan to hold the championship going forward. If you want to do AJ Styles versus Randy Orton at SummerSlam, or Shinsuke Nakamura versus Randy Orton, or you could do Samoa Joe factoring into here. If Styles loses this match to Nakamura, then it becomes, when is Daniel Bryan winning that title? If AJ Styles retains the title here, then it becomes, when is Samoa Joe beating Styles for the title? It's almost sort of like everything depends on just whether or not they want Daniel Bryan to hold that championship, kind of.
I would say that Bryan wins at WrestleMania, but with the way they're booking Bryan, he could win it on an episode of SmackDown, and it'll be like, hey, Bryan's champion.
And we don't know what's happening with Money in the Bank either, because Money in the Bank could be a scenario where maybe somebody from Monday Night Raw wins, and maybe SmackDown needs another person, and they do a crossover. Because it is going to be cross-branded, it is going to be, you can challenge for whichever title you want. And that is, who knows? We've had scenarios in the past where it's been Mr. Kennedy is holding the Money in the Bank, and on SmackDown, we've got Batista and The Undertaker feuding, and Mark Henry gets involved, and that leads to Edge beating Undertaker, and then Edge loses it to Kane, and then that's like, we've had weird situations in the past with Money in the Bank, so that itself is just sort of like, it's an impossibility to factor in that variable. And it's kind of, if Nakamura wins the title here, then he's got the title, and it doesn't matter how long he holds the title, he can always still be a former WWE champion.
And that's the way I see them booking it here.
Colin brings up a good point. AJ Styles has been very, very popular, and they clearly value him a lot, as they should. So who's to say they don't just have him retain the title here, and Samoa Joe beats him? Samoa Joe could beat him at Money in the Bank, and he could still, they could have their rematch at Extreme Rules, and then Samoa Joe moves on to somebody else at SummerSlam. Joe could beat Daniel Bryan, he could lose to Daniel Bryan, he could beat Randy Orton, he could lose to Randy Orton, probably not. Then you got to factor in Big Cass, then you got to factor in, what do they do with Daniel Bryan? If they don't use him, who does Styles feud with afterward? Because if Styles goes through Shinsuke Nakamura and he goes through Samoa Joe, by SummerSlam, is he fighting Big Cass? Well, that's if they want Big Cass to be a big deal. Is he fighting Andrade Cien Almas? It's so hard to figure out. AJ Styles versus The Miz, too. Like, there's so many options for so few people that even has a factor in the Roman Reigns and Samoa Joe match. Because Roman Reigns is in a scenario where he, in WWE's mind, I'm sure, they're going to want to have him win a match. He lost to Lesnar twice. They're probably thinking to themselves, well, by this point, we need to prove that Roman Reigns is still the big dog. But Samoa Joe, if he's the guy who you want to beat AJ Styles for the championship, either at Money in the Bank or whatever, he needs a win here because he's accomplished jack shit on the main roster. Yet, it's WWE. Do you go with Roman Reigns beats him, but hey, it doesn't matter because Samoa Joe, he only lost to Roman Reigns. He's Roman Reigns. That's like losing to The Undertaker. That type of mentality, man, it's impossible to predict. I will say I will not be surprised at all if AJ Styles and Roman Reigns win here. I'll not be surprised at all if Shinsuke Nakamura and Samoa Joe win. I won't be surprised at all if Shinsuke Nakamura and Roman Reigns win. But I will be surprised if AJ Styles and Samoa Joe win. That's my weird prediction. So
I just don't see Nakamura losing this match. And I really think that they're going to try to get that third, or I guess at this point it'll be the fourth match between AJ and Shinsuke. And for some reason in my mind, I just see them going, hey, they're the two wrestlers. Let's put them in an Iron Man match. Maybe if the card is slim, maybe they even put them in a 60-minute Iron Man match at Money in the Bank. Because
I think if you are going to do Styles Nakamura again, it dictates Styles has to lose it.
Well, yeah, Styles has to lose at Backlash because I see it being Roman. I know you said only WWE sees it this way. I've actually, at this point, Roman Reigns needs to win here for WWE to keep up their narrative that he is the big dog. Roman Reigns has lost so many high-level matches in the past few months because even if you want to go, well, he won the Chamber, yeah, but 2 seconds later, Braun Strowman beat the shit out of him and he didn't even do anything about it.
Well, does a win over Samoa Joe here matter? It's Samoa Joe. He hasn't won a single title. He hasn't wrestled at either WrestleMania since he's been on the main roster. And he's never beaten anybody. He never beat Brock Lesnar. He never beat like a Braun Strowman, or he never really beat Roman Reigns. And he's accomplished nothing.
The only reason I'm going to say it matters here is because he just needs a win on a major level. I see Roman winning here, and then Roman goes, well, I want one more match with Lesnar, so I'm going to enter the Money in the Bank. And then Joe will go on SmackDown and go, well, if Roman's in Money in the Bank, then I'll see you there because I'm still going to put the big dog to sleep. And that's how you get that feud continued into the co-branded Money in the Bank. And that frees up AJ to do one more match with Shinsuke before Joe gets his hands on the WWE title at Extreme Rules.
Callum, what are you thinking here?
I'm going by the mindset that I still think they don't. It's not the case they don't want Nakamura to hold the championship. I just think they value AJ Styles' future opponents more, and they value the prospect of a AJ Styles versus Samoa Joe feud at SummerSlam. And I do agree that they could just give the title to Nakamura and then have AJ Styles win it in the next pay-per-view. But I think it maybe, and maybe I'm just giving them too much credit, they value giving AJ Styles a longer title reign will make the title change to Samoa Joe feel a little bit bigger than just giving an extra title reign to AJ Styles for the sake of giving Nakamura a brief title run. Then in the other match with Roman Reigns and Samoa Joe, if WWE had any sense, which again is giving them a lot of credit, they would recognise that Samoa Joe has been the most interesting act in all of WWE since WrestleMania. His promos have been like at a level above anybody in the entire company, in maybe not just like in the past few months, maybe for like years at this point. He sounds realistic. He can turn whatever WWE give him in terms of scripts or whatever and turn it into something that you can truly believe, truly get behind. But he doesn't do it in a way where they're really just cheering him because it's Roman Reigns. It's not a case of like, oh, we love him so much, even though he's supposed to be a heel. You would boo him if it was somebody you actually cared about, but because it's Roman Reigns, you want him to beat the crap out of Roman Reigns.
Yeah, if it's Samoa Joe versus AJ Styles, Samoa Joe gets booed.
Yeah, exactly. So he's doing all the right things, but essentially the narrative has been that Roman Reigns can beat everyone that's not Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar is the only person that he can't beat, and until he beats him, he's still going to have that chip on his shoulder. And to continue that story, you have to have Roman Reigns win against everybody he possibly can that's not called Brock Lesnar. Until he does beat Brock Lesnar. But I don't know. Part of me wants to believe that they want to go through the mindset of like Roman Reigns gets onto a bit of a losing streak because he just can't get the Brock Lesnar thing out of his head, and he needs to go on a bit of a downward spiral for a little while to change his attitude, change his approach, maybe solidify more of an aggressive heel turn. Maybe he just gets more aggressive to beat Brock Lesnar and then he turns heel on the back of that. And in that case, you could have Samoa Joe win. But I think if I'm guns to my head, putting my predictions out there, I'm going AJ Styles to retain the WWE Championship and Roman Reigns to beat Samoa Joe.
I'll ask you guys this. Who's the number 2 heel on Raw? Number 1's Brock Lesnar.
Wow. Can you really put Jinder there if he lost to Chad Gable recently?
I by default, I have to say Kevin and Sami as a duo.
So this is what concerns
Raw needs
me.
That title, dude. Raw needs a full-time champion. I don't know what they're doing with Lesnar.
Well, Raw doesn't. I mean, it would be better if Raw did have a championship, but Raw just needs a big heel. They need a dominant heel.
This is what I think is difficult about this, because it's like Brock Lesnar, if he loses the title at Money in the Bank, he loses it to, I mean, we can pretty much agree. If he loses it to either Roman Reigns or Bobby Lashley, right?
Or Braun Strowman.
Or Braun Strowman. Possibility, but it's one of those three.
I wouldn't rule him out just because of his popularity.
I think that if he loses it at Money in the Bank, he loses it to Roman Reigns, because if you do something with Bobby Lashley and Braun Strowman, they don't have enough time to do a match here at Backlash and then push away the Braun Strowman feud and then do Lashley versus Lesnar at Money in the Bank. It's just, there's only a month and a half. So more than likely, it would end up being Roman Reigns just says, look, the referee admitted that he made a mistake. I want Brock. I beat Samoa Joe at Backlash. I want one more match with Brock. And this needs to be something where it's just like, that's the end of it and stuff. And he beats him at Money in the Bank. And then maybe they have another fucking rematch. I hope not. At Extreme Rules. Or maybe Brock takes Extreme Rules off. And maybe he fights somebody like a Bobby Lashley at SummerSlam. Or maybe he doesn't even fight at all. Maybe Money in the Bank is his last match. Because we've been hearing some rumors that Greatest Royal Rumble could have been his last match. And different things like that. So,
but
you
again,
never really know.
I think it's WWE consciously
they be
pushing
gaming
out this
people.
narrative. Yeah.
It could be. Like,
oh, Lesnar wants to leave. Lesnar doesn't want to stay.
It's difficult to figure out which thing's real and which thing isn't. And with the whole scenario with Brock Lesnar, we don't know if he is working on a per night type of deal where they wanted to drag this out until Money in the Bank, or if they want to drag this out until SummerSlam, or maybe he sticks around even longer than that. It might be the case. But he, more than likely, if he's dropping that title anytime soon, it's either Money in the Bank or SummerSlam. It's not going to happen at Extreme Rules. And if he drops it to Money in the Bank, Reigns is the only one set up quick enough with no other alternatives that he could fight for that. If it's SummerSlam, we've got plenty of time where we can set up Braun Strowman again, or we could set up Lashley again. And if Lashley wins the title, then if he's winning it as a babyface, who does he challenge? Or who challenges him? If he doesn't win it and Roman Reigns wins, then this is where it gets funny. Roman Reigns becomes the de facto top heel. Because they know, they have to know, they just have to know Roman Reigns equals booze. And they can book him as a babyface as much as they want. You put Roman Reigns versus Braun Strowman, people are going to cheer for Braun Strowman. You put Roman Reigns versus Bobby Roode, people are going to cheer for Bobby Roode. Bobby Roode turns heel. You get Bobby Roode versus a babyface Roman Reigns. People are still going to cheer Bobby Roode. Seth Rollins, they're going to cheer him over Roman Reigns. Finn Balor, they're going to cheer over Roman Reigns. All these people are going to get cheered over Roman Reigns, but maybe they just have it booked as, okay, well then, boom, who cares? And he becomes the takeover for Brock Lesnar, and we get Lashley and Strowman and Rollins and Balor and Ambrose and whatever the hell else ends up being the case. All these people can fight Roman Reigns because in their mind, it doesn't matter if he's a heel or a face. We can have heels and baby faces up against him. And that's where I think the title's going. So that kind of makes me think that's why Samoa Joe loses this here. I think that they booked this ahead of time, well enough advance, like before they did the Superstar Shakeup, that they probably thought, wouldn't it be interesting if Samoa Joe lost to Roman Reigns and then that was their feud and it's just a means to get Roman Reigns somebody to beat. I don't have a lot of faith in anything else than that. And Roman Reigns has lost a lot of matches recently, but he's lost only because they didn't want to have him win yet, I think. And that also makes me think Shinsuke Nakamura wins the title because I just can't see Samoa Joe and AJ Styles both winning here, and I can't see Styles retaining and kind of being like, I don't know. it's batshit crazy the way that they've been booking this stuff.
But at this point, I'm really concerned with the Raw half of the Money in the Bank ladder match if Lesnar isn't competing against Reigns at Money in the Bank, because that means they're going to want to put all of these major names into the ladder match just to have them on the card, even if it's going to go to The Miz on SmackDown or something, you know. But if Lesnar does fight Roman, I think I'll go as far as to say Strowman gets in the ladder match and immediately cashes in on whomever wins the Roman Lesnar Money in the Bank title match, because even if it's Lesnar, Braun can easily cash in right after and say, I'm not finished with you, to Lesnar, and he's the one who takes out Lesnar from WWE, and then we get Reigns versus Strowman again. Oh, Jesus.
I just don't have a whole lot of faith that this is going to turn out all that well, and I think Backlash is going to be one of those things where we look back and we go, God damn it.
At this point, I'm willing to wait till WrestleMania for a title switch with Lesnar if it means Bryan wins the Rumble and it's Bryan versus Lesnar and Bryan.
Christ, I don't want to see that.
Just
Give Daniel Bryan something better. I don't want to see German suplex, knee plus, end of the match.
Just because I want to see, you know, somebody beat Lesnar that isn't Reigns at this point, because if they're just forcing this thing with Roman, man. Like, he hasn't gotten the job done. They, weirdly enough, didn't give him an out at WrestleMania, but they gave him an out during the cage match. I don't get it. And it's really throwing everything else off, because Raw is, to me, in desperate need of a top champion.
Well, we're going to figure out where the direction is going, at least to a better extent than what we know right now, on Sunday night when this happens. It's usual standard operating procedure. The pre-show is going to be at 7 o'clock. 8 o'clock is when the show starts, and we got 3 hours of that. Then after that's done, the post-show, where we're going to break down what we were right about, what we were wrong about, and try to give some kind of a semblance of just, I guess this is where they're going from here, and that kind of a thing. And I think more than anything, the two matches that are going to really dictate what that conversation is going to be, it's going to be the WWE title and the Roman Reigns match. The rest of them, who knows? Unless there's maybe some kind of weird switch up where it's like, you know, Hardy loses the title, or Lashley turns heel, or Alexa wins the title back or something like that. I don't know. But if you want to be aware of when we do that post show and when it's uploaded, the best thing for you to do is subscribe on YouTube and ring the bell for notifications. And you can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter at SmarkOutMoment. You can also follow the SmarkOutMoment.com RSS feed to get the updates on any of those kind of things, as well as the articles that are up on the website. That, you know, we got the weekly content, we got any other random kind of things that happen like that. You can follow these fine gentlemen over here on their Twitter accounts and such. Rob, anything you want to toss out?
It's @DudeFelice everywhere. Follow me. You know, let's start a conversation. Make me want to get on social media, guys. I don't know. And, you know, stay tuned to the weeklies because we all work hard on them. And I'll be here on Sunday to talk to Tony about the pay-per-view.
Callum?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Wigmeister14. Don't at me. Just, I like my privacy outside of these conversations. So, but if you do have any questions, save them for the mailbag, and I'll attempt to answer them then, if they're any good, Dave.
Yeah, get your mailbag questions in. Is it almost time for that?
No, actually.
Well, it's good to get them early at least.
We have our schedule for anybody who is where. I know I got one question yesterday or the day before, whatever, that was actually supposed to be a mailbag question, but I figured I would just answer it here and stuff. The Sexy Superstars tournament, whoever that was that had emailed me, that is not starting until the end of June or so. But over the next couple of weeks, this is what the game plan is. I am unavailable for 2 weeks from now. There's just too much going on, and I'm going to be out of town. So I have to record something ahead of time. And that usually is a good scenario for something like a Sporkle quiz or something. I don't know. And we have to kind of figure out very, very soon what we're going to do for the main event for next week and the main event for the week after that. So we can record that stuff over the course of the next week. I don't know if I'm going to record the hot tags for like the episode 337. This is 335. 336, we're going to do the normal things. The next type of things we're going to get, you're going to get something on Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday for the hot tags. And then the main event is going to be Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. That could be anything for the most part. If WWE puts something out there and it becomes like a big discussion point, then we're going to try to tailor it to that. But there's also something on the Mega Maniacs. There's a poll where I'm trying to get everybody's feedback of just like, what are you kind of interested in? Do you want to see us play another edition of Play the Game? Because we could do that either this next week or the week after that. Do you want something new, like Mount Rushmore, or one more match? Or do you want to bring back an oldie, like Superstar Scores, or Belt or Bury, or Finisher versus Finisher, or anything else that's like that? There's a lot of variety that we could go here. And then whatever we decide on for this next week and the week after that, that's happening. Once we get to May 23rd, which is going to be episode number 338, that is more than likely going to be the mailbag. Although there's also a chance maybe the mailbag is on the May 30th edition, number 339. So the mailbag's not coming for at least another 2, 3, 4 weeks or so. We got a lot of time for May. It's kind of weird. We do know that at the beginning of June, before we get into the Money in the Bank predictions, we're going to do a Call the Spot for the Money in the Bank competitors. Double edition of that, because that's what we do every year. Then we got to get into TakeOver and Money in the Bank and the UK Championship Tournament right one after another. And then bam, the mailbag has to happen after that. And then bam, we have to start getting into Sexy Superstars Tournament and Extreme Rules. And that's going to cover a little bit of time. Another mailbag in the middle of there. Then we start getting into SummerSlam and all that. So it's sort of like we've got this weird range where for the next 4 weeks, 5 weeks really kind of, there's only 2 topics. The mailbag and Call the Spot. The 3 other editions, I don't know. And then it'll become, once June starts, it's like, oh fuck, we got a lot of crap to do.
You mean we got some chance to do some variety as opposed to pay-per-view predictions every other week?
Yeah, thank God. Like,
unless WWE pulls out some random
1, 2, 3, 4.
It's
June 6 weeks
17th.
until Money in the Bank. Wow.
Yeah, so WWE decided that they were going to go like bam, 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 and then go like, here's a break, which is kind of weird. So this is the perfect time if anybody wants to have any suggestions out there or some random topics they would like to see toss them out there, because even if we don't get to it next week, we could get to it the week afterward, or the week after that, or the week after that. It's very up in the air right now. And as I mentioned before, if WWE puts something out there that ends up being a big focal point, whether it's a planned thing or not, you know, they could have, like, unfortunately, it's happened before, somebody could die. And if somebody dies, it's a good time to do Superstar Scores or Wrestling with the Past, or we could get some kind of huge heel or face turn, and then we could really be like, man, we really need to do a debate about heel or face.
I like that, Tony. It's like, when someone dies, it's a bad time for family, but it's a great time for content.
Yeah, that's what happens. And the way that they've been announcing random stuff too, we know that at some point we're getting the Mae Young Classic 2, although I don't think that's happening over the next couple of weeks. I think that's happening towards the fall. And we could get another Saudi Arabia show.
I don't know, dude. I'm thinking 6 weeks is a long time. I'm thinking they throw in, hey, guess what? In 2 weeks, it's the King of the Ring.
They could do something random like that. We never knew that Mixed Match Challenge was going to be a thing last year. And that became some, like, 14-week tournament. It's so just dependent upon that stuff. But if we go on the side of caution and we have backup topics, that's where you guys come in. You drop your comments below, you vote on that Megamaniacs poll, and you tell us, like, it's been way too long since we've seen Retain, Repackage, Release, and we really want to see another edition of that. Or, hey, guys, you know, you didn't really talk too much about Bobby Lashley, and maybe you want to do some kind of a thing about that. Or I really hope not, because I don't really have anything to say about Bobby Lashley.
I've been on this podcast for over a year now. I've never done a Superstar Scores.
We haven't done a Superstar Scores since Goldberg.
Yeah.
I haven't done Wrestling with the Past. Well, I guess I did for the Hall of Fame, but wouldn't mind doing something like that. Another Smark announce table. Maybe
That's another thing. Smark announce table. I totally forgot to put that on the fucking poll.
Because right now I'm thinking we could easily at least do something about one of the old Money in the Bank ladder matches.
Yeah, we've done the first Money in the Bank before, but we could do other ones. And I've done already a Sporkle quiz on Money in the Bank ladder match winners and stuff like that, but I haven't done a Sporkle quiz in a while, and if you have one in mind that you really want to see whether we can do that, then maybe we can figure that out. And we could also maybe try to figure out a way to do a combo thing of that, but I wouldn't bet on that. I still don't really know how to work that out. We can do something brand new, like we could do the split crowd. Maybe we set up a thing where it's like, you know, Rob is pro Ziggler, Callum is anti Ziggler.
I absolutely refuse to do that one. We've done it enough too much. I'm pretty sure people are sick of hearing us fight about that stuff.
Are you sure?
It's so just like, whatever you guys want, we'll try to figure it out. So make sure you drop those comments below and tell us what you think about this, as well as when it comes to the Backlash predictions, who's going to win, who's going to lose, and where do you think we're going from here? Drop those comments and tell us what you think. Drop a pipe bomb while you're at it too. Just don't tell the government. And when we do the post show, we'll run back all our opinions about that. And we'll also have at least a little bit more of an opinion of like what maybe we're going to be doing for the next main event. But we might not even know until like Tuesday or something. I don't know. So stay tuned. That's the best way you know. I'll announce something when I have something to announce, either on Megamaniacs or on the podcast or on the website itself or Facebook or Twitter. Just follow everything and do the same thing for fanboysanonymous.com. Which you can find, of course, the YouTube channel is Fanboys Anonymous and blah, 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 like that. Myself, Tony Mango, all my other outside interference type of articles and stuff, you can find them on those websites. And we will see you when we see you, everybody. Thanks for listening to this edition. This has been another Smark Out moment, and we're being counted out.